Welcome to this week's Eredivisie review. With 9 games to go, the tension was rising. In a tight bottom half, every side could still get dragged into the relegation battle. And there were 2 big matchups for sides in the bottom 3. Meanwhile, at the top, PSV had to keep on winning if they had any hope of reeling in Ajax. We start with 2 sides that had won just once in 2025. Bottom of the table, Almere City and NAC Breda. The visitors were dropping fast after a 6-game winless run and had only a 4-point cushion between themselves and the relegation zone. Almere were 10 points adrift of the relegation playoff place, which seems their best hope of survival. And they had what looked a decent first chance. Junior Cadil failed to do much with that cross. Scoring goals has been their main issue. He was their joint top scorer with 2. Their overall total is a paltry 16. The next lowest is Groningen's 23. No such trouble for NAC Breda, although Sidney van Hooijdonk had been waiting for the first of his second spell with the club, which arrived here thanks to Boyd Lucason's cross. And an incisive pass to find him from Maxime Boussi. The 50th Almere City had led in so far. Van Hooijdonk's previous season with the club saw him score 15 times in the second division and earn a move to Bologna. This, his first anywhere since October of 2023. However, teams are often most vulnerable just after they've scored, or so the theory goes. It proved correct here for the visitors, who conceded shortly after Almere City kicked off again. This time Boussi was the one losing the ball. And Cadil, along with Thomas Robinet, was able to take advantage. The goal, though, came from Charles Brim, a Canadian international who joined them from Sparta in January, and it didn't seem to be entirely intentional. Presumably, he'd been hoping someone would turn in his cross at the far post. Just 27 seconds after the restart and 81 after Van Hooijdonk had scored at the other end. A rare moment of fortune for a side that had won only 3 games all season. However, 10 minutes before the break, that fortune was nowhere to be seen as Brim missed what appeared to be a much easier chance to give them the lead. A good run down the left from Vatsilos Sagaritis and a knockback from Robinet, which appeared to be just too high for the striker to convert. The clearest chance of a promising first half for the home side, who were running out of games to save themselves. Their coach, Julian Heijsdijk, said the aim was to win all 9 remaining matches. An impossible dream, but the former Sparta coach has noticeably improved them since he arrived over the winter break. They were the ones that carried on threatening, Hamdi Akujobi taking aim here. The fullback was also at the centre of the game's most controversial moment when his challenge on Kamal Soa left the NAC midfielder in a crumpled heap. But it brought only a yellow card from the referee, Bas Nijhuis. Contact happened at real speed, and with his studs up. A fraction higher, and he might have caused real damage. Many expected a red to follow, but the VAR did not intervene. The NAC coach, Carl Hufken, said diplomatically there was little decent football on show, and it wasn't the best game for the neutral. That was more the case in the second half. Brim and Cadil were still the ones spearheading the home side's chase. The French winger looking to finish off a burst by his teammate, but the quality was missing. The visitors had drawn with Sparta last time out, and held Feyenoord last month too, while Utrecht had only beaten them 1-0. But they struggled to create chances under Almere's pressing and their compact defence. And they were often vulnerable to counter-attacks too, when they gave the ball away cheaply. Winger Cornelius Hansen led this, but Brim perhaps wasn't decisive enough. And also didn't look like getting a penalty for going down very easily. Set pieces also failed to yield decent chances for either side. James Lawrence hasn't scored since joining Almere City from Nuremberg. This as close as the Welshman came. But they did continue to benefit from NAC giving the ball away under pressure. This time it was Boy Kemper. He worked hard to win it back, but surprised Dominik Janaszek with a pass he wasn't expecting, and in nipped Tom Hay to have a go. The deflection helped out keeper Daniel Bielica. And that continued to be the pattern in the latter stages. Here, it was Australian midfielder Max Balla whose pass proved wayward, only for Robinet to then steer the resulting chance wide. It was a hard watch for both coaches and for those that had braved the evening cold. Zagaritis carried on making his runs down the left though and linking up with either Kadil or the man that replaced him late on, Adi Nalic. And it was Nalic's cross that brought up their best chance to win it and saw Bielica make the save of the game, keeping out the flick from Robinet and reacting quickly to then clear the danger. The next two games for Rijsdijk are equally big. They'll go to Willem II after the international break, the side that began the weekend third bottom, and then face PEC Zwolle, who are only just above the relegation zone. At Breda, host Groningen. Utrecht look to have picked up after their slow start to the year, recording back-to-back victories over NAC Breda and Willem II. But they allowed NAC the first chance of this game. Tom Owian's free kick bringing the first save from Vasilis Barkas. Ron Janss's home side remain one of the surprise packages, but their form before Christmas saw them touted as potential title candidates at one point. They won 10 of the first 12, losing only to Feyenoord. The January edition of Sebastian Haller up front hasn't yet led to a large increase in their goal production either. The on-loan Dortmund striker grabbed his first league goal last week and finished this empty-handed. Jens Tunstra's quick free kick picking him out. Roger Meyer and his team haven't been as lucky as their opponents, and their own 6-game streak without a win had seen them drop into the bottom half, where they were now only 2 points above the bottom 3, putting them under pressure in the final weeks of his time in charge. They took until the final 10 minutes of the half to engineer a decent chance. Sonja Hansen making it, the winger wasn't able to put it away. One of his last goals actually came in the reverse fixture against Utrecht, which they'd lost 2-1 in November. Neither coach changed personnel at the break, and neither side could quite find the spark. At this point, their XG values were 0.2 for Utrecht and 0.4 for NAC. Paxton Aronson didn't look like increasing that with this first opportunity after the restart. They'd managed only one goal in their previous 3 home games, and Jans made a triple change on the hour to try and prove things. One of the subs, Adrian Blake, helped to set up Zidane Iqbal, but keeper Robin Roos proved a hard man to beat. Another replacement, Miguel Rodriguez, had become a big part of Utrecht's midfield before a groin injury in January. He was the one clattered here by Owian as the home side continued to look for the breakthrough. Soufiane El Karouani took it on and came close to a first home goal for the club. The left-back's effort not far from the top corner. But their sloppiness on the ball ultimately cost them. By the middle of the second half, they'd already lost it over 100 times, limiting their ability to create meaningful chances. And they were also careless in conceding a penalty here. Aronsson with a mistimed tackle on Mace Hudemakers, which didn't get the ball but also wasn't initially spotted by the referee. Meyer seemed to have seen it. Soon the VAR was having a look too, and things didn't look good for Utrecht. Once Martin van den Kerkhoff had consulted the replays, the penalty was confirmed. Von Krooi took on the job, and then duly slotted a 4th goal since the turn of the year, one so important his manager could hardly bear to watch. The striker kept his nerve though. Their first goal in this stadium since October 2016. One to enjoy afterwards for NAC's chief executive Wilco van Schijk too, although his feeling seemed to be more about relief. Now, holding on to the lead for a first win here since February of 2013, became crucial. They'd also won just one of the previous 11 meetings and rode their luck, Matthijs Dieden missing his chance of a first goal for the club. His centre-half partner, Nick Vierhaver, was actually in a better position just behind him. Vierhaver said afterwards they'd had a great week of training and he struggled to explain the continued ball loss which led in NAC again here. Sami Oisa racing away with 2 minutes to go. The substitute was also the one setting up their final opportunity for Kento Shogai, who completely missed his kick. And that led to potential trouble at the other end, which turned out to be Utrecht's best chance of the game. One that was created by another replacement, Anthony Descott. His persistence saw him perfectly pick out Ale, and he seemed certain to score. Only for Roos to intervene again, this time with his fingertips. One of the saves of the weekend, just as important as the penalty. They meant a fifth home defeat for Utrecht. Despite their lofty position, that's the most in the last decade. There was now a chance they could be overhauled by Twente if they won their game with Feyenoord later in the weekend. A win for Feyenoord in that contest would see them close to within 2 points of third, still with the game in hand. NAC ended the weekend 10th, now with a 5-point cushion over the bottom three. Sparta Rotterdam began this round with only goal difference keeping them out of the relegation zone. Their opponents, PEC Zwolle, were just a point and a place better off, having given Ajax a tough game last week before losing 1-0. Shunsuke Mito had the home side's best early opportunity after some quick pinball passing, but it was a routine save for Jasper Schendeloy. Given their positions, this one fell into the must-win category for both Maurice Stein, the Sparta coach, and his opposite number, Johnny Jansen. The visitors had gone 5 games since their back-to-back successes against PSV and Fortuna Sittard, picking up 2 draws and suffering 3 defeats. But they enjoyed the game's best chance just before the 20-minute mark. Dylan Mbayo giving Shadow Florinus a near-open goal to aim at. That's one he'll be thinking about for some time to come. Without a goal since November 2021, the former Sparta defender could have done his old club some real damage. Instead, the first half meandered on without a goal. The play not of the highest quality, although it was still exciting, with chances at both ends. Zwolle's quick breaks were causing the home side trouble, led by the pace of Mbayo, who took this one on himself. Sparta laboured a little more for their chances, and had only one other of note before the break from Ajax loanee Christian Linssen, the Icelander taking aim from the edge of the box. Stein elected to make a double change at half-time. Venezuelan Teo Quintero replaced Mike Erdhausen at the back, and 21-year-old Joel Idao, a former Arsenal youngster, made his Eredivisie debut with Mito withdrawn. But the hosts were the ones falling behind first, not scoring first. The goal came from an unlikely source, right-back Oliver Ertsen, who came through the Ajax Academy and was a regular for their reserves last season before moving to Zwolle last summer. And it was a loose pass from Quintero looking for his fellow sub which did the damage, Ertsen nipping in to score his first senior goal. Not the start that the coach had expected from his replacement, whose challenge on Ertsen was also pretty ineffective. To the side's credit, though, they responded well and found themselves level less than 2 minutes later. This time it was Zwolle giving the ball away cheaply. Anselmo Garcia McNulty presenting it to Mitchell van Bergen, who lobbed it over for Tobias Lauritsen. The big striker appeared to have got just a faint touch to it, although it had looked likely to go in any case via the deflection off McNulty. Instead, the Norwegian claimed a third goal in 3 games and an 8th of the season. Ten minutes after his goal, Eriksen looked like turning from hero to villain as the referee Rob Diepenink pointed to the spot following his challenge on Idaho. The first opportunity the winger had to run at him. He was incredulous at the decision, which appeared to have been made due to contact with his foot rather than the shoulder-to-shoulder charge. However, with Lauritsen set for his run-up, there was an intervention by the VAR. One which Stein called crazy. He admitted it wasn't a clear-cut penalty, but also said it wasn't 100% a wrong decision, given there was enough contact. So, not a clear and obvious error. However, after a few more looks, the referee did change his mind. There weren't many more chances for either side in the closing stages. Swallows' Bulgarian international midfielder Filip Krastev had a speculative effort here. But the best came from the left foot of another midfielder, Davy Vandenberg. Usually a starter, but here a late replacement. He came on for Jamiro Montero, who'd scored the only goal when these two met in November. They'd won the last 2, while Lauritsen got the winner the last time Sparta tasted success in August 2023. Keeper Nikolai was lucky that he deflected the ball away after it had hit the bar, rather than knocking it in. Stein said he'd wavered in the closing stages about throwing on another attacker and going for it, but also said he didn't want to risk losing the point that they had by getting caught out on the break. The man he did leave on up front nearly curled one into the top corner to win it. Lauritsen a fraction away with his aim, so no third home win in a row for Sparta. And a point which doesn't really do either side that much good. A visit to Fortuna Sittard comes next for the hosts. There are 2 big relegation 6-pointers against the bottom 2 on the horizon for Pek Zwolle. After restoring some pride with a 2-2 draw at Arsenal, PSV visited second bottom EKC and laid down a marker with the opening goal just 3.5 minutes in. A move which EKC looked to have seen off when Yasin Ukili intervened, only for the midfielder to give it away cheaply. And Ivan Perisic did the rest, cutting in from the right to arrow his side in front. It's been a productive period for the Croatian, who also scored against Arsenal and has found the net 6 times in 2025. The start of a dominant display from Peter Bosz's men, who are determined to push Ajax all the way. And now that they're free from Champions League distractions, they feel that they can win their final 9 games. Crucially, the next one is against the Eredivisie leaders, following on from the international break. The aim here was to score as many as possible against a side who began 8 points from safety. EKC had lost their last 2, having given themselves hope by winning 3 in a row before that. 19-year-old Isaac Babadi made his first league start of the season, having also begun at Arsenal, and nearly made it 2-0. But they were without Yuri Schouten, whose knee injury has ruled him out of this month's Nations League matches for the Netherlands too. On the other hand, Serginho Dest started a game for the first time since April last year, having come back as a sub in last week's win over Heerenveen. And going forward, they faced little resistance, Luc de Jong finding Guus Til. They also had control of midfield without too much interference, with Dest making regular forays into there from right-back. Ukili stepped in again, but once again the same thing happened. This time Joey Veerman stole it back, playing here in Schouten's deeper role, only for Perisic to then waste his next decent chance. It could and should have been a lot more than 1-0 at this point. EKC looked unlikely to do Ajax a favour, but one of Ajax's old academy graduates did provide some resistance. Rishon Magare firing in their first real shot on target, one which gave keeper Walter Benitez at least some work to do. The only surprise was that it took PSV so long to score their second. It arrived 6 minutes before the break after Tyrell Malacia, Noah Lang and Perisic linked up down the left. Lang then taking it on to score his third in 5 games. And once again, EKC made it far too easy for him, standing off and allowing him space. Eredivisie beaten at its near post. The 51st goal that the Eredivisie's leakiest defence had allowed in. The 77th that the division's top scorers had managed. Their 78th arrived just 7 minutes into the second half, and it seemed to suggest an eventual drubbing for EKC, who were lucky not to be already 3-0 down. Veerman this time picked up the assist with a precise cross for De Jong, a player he supplied regularly over the last 4 seasons. Once again, the marking was ineffective, and the arguments began immediately between EKC's central defenders. A 12th league goal for PSV's number 9, and a 16th in all. There had been little doubt about the outcome for a while now, and it seemed a matter of how many PSV wanted to score. EKC's coach, Henk Fraser, said he was realistic and knew PSV were way too good for them on the day. This one couldn't have been placed any more perfectly in the corner. As an example of PSV's class and the lack of stern resistance, this move midway through the second half stands out. The visitors working their way right from their own goal line to EKC's 6-yard box. Substitute Ismail Saibari was part of bringing the ball out and also got on the end of it after Perisic and De Jong were involved. Hiren this time able to stand up to the threat. But it wasn't just the one chance. The move yielded 2 opportunities for the Moroccan to get his name on the score sheet as PSV kept on knocking. Another one too, this time with Babadi opened things up in the area again. EKC's keeper racing out to close it down. All of that before Babadi himself had his own effort, looking for just his 4th senior goal. As well as Ajax, they still have to play both Feyenoord and FC Twente, so the chance of dropping points remains, but on this evidence, against admittedly inferior opponents, they look sharp. They were also able to give minutes to players like Kuhab Driesch, who scored his first European goal on his first Champions League start in North London. With 20 minutes to go, he nearly delivered a first in the Eredivisie since August, after a set-up from De Jong. But Howen had a great game despite the goals that went against him, and he turned that onto the bar. Another sub, Yohan Bakayoko, also came close in stoppage time. EKC fortunate their goal difference didn't take more of a battering, given PSV had won 5-1 when the sides met on the opening weekend. It's 11 league wins in a row in this fixture for PSV, dating back to EKC's last success in February 2014. So the gap to Ajax was reduced to 5 points, with the leaders hosting RZ a day later. A 16th defeat for EKC, who have only 4 wins to their name and are 2 points clear of Almere City, who are bottom. Saturday's final game saw Heracles travel north to visit Heerenveen, who'd won only once since the opening game of the year. That had come in the first match under interim coach Henk Brugge, their last outing here against RZ. There were only 3 points between the sides. They began 9th and 13th respectively, but it was the visitors on the front foot early, even if the eventual effort from captain Brian de Kersmaker was wayward. Brugge was looking to become the first Heerenveen coach to win his opening 2 Eredivisie home games, but Heracles had the greater need of the points, sitting 3 above the relegation zone. And they struck first when de Kersmaker picked out Jis Honkamp. A second goal in 3 games for the striker, fit again, which Andries Noppurst almost kept out. A frustrating one for the big keeper, who did react quickly, but not quite quickly enough. Honkamp began his career with Heerenveen, making 21 appearances and scoring twice before dropping down a division for more regular football at Den Bosch. Heracles had had an 8-match unbeaten start to 2025, winning 4 and drawing 4, but the luck hasn't been with Erwin van der Looy's men in the last 4. 3 defeats and a win over Pek Zwolle are the results from the last month, and there was no luck here either, with Ivan Mesic yellow-carded for what seemed a solid but fair tackle, while van der Looy picked up a caution for whatever he had then said about it. Brugge said that his side had enough possession and looked fine up to the final third, but then they weren't assertive enough. There were certainly not many home chances for the fans to enjoy in the first half. The best of them came here, 3 minutes before the break, for Ali Reza Jahanbakhsh, set up by Marcus Linde. But shortly afterwards, it would be Linde celebrating. He slotted the equaliser to score for the second home game in a row. Previously, he'd also stumbled over the ball and gifted a goal to RZ before making amends. Here, the Swede was much more composed in his performance and took up a good position where he was picked out by Mats Kulle. A great cross from the captain and parity for the Frisians. Just a second top-flight goal for the 21-year-old too, and both of them have come for Heerenveen and here. They started the second half as they had ended the first, on the front foot and with Linde contributing well. Ilyas Sabawi was also again involved, scampering down the left-hand side this time to provide a pass. Deflection, taking it out for a corner. Heerenveen had clearly refuelled well over the break, as their fans were doing too. September's previous meeting had ended 2-1 in Heracles' favour, with the winner coming late for Mario Engels, their first win and first goals against Heerenveen in 5 attempts. But as far as their players and coach was concerned, not many of the decisions from referee Erwin Blank were going their way. Sam Schreperman blocked off by Oliver Braude, eliciting a frustrated reaction. A Heerenveen win would have lifted them a place into 8th, and they were the better side after the break, with Sabawi going close midway through the half. It's been a successful loan from Feyenoord for him so far, and he also scored in their previous win. As did another winger, Juha Talvitie for Heracles in their last success. The Finland under-21 international was only occasionally lively here though, but he did enough to test out Noppert as the final 10 minutes approached. But too many of their attacks came to nothing. Half-time sub Jan Zamburek struggled to get into the game. The Czech striker had one moment here when he skipped through and linked up with fellow sub Engels, but the danger was easily averted. Van der Looy ended the game as frustrated as he'd been throughout the second half when another barge from Braude went unpunished. This time Engels looked like getting away before the Norwegian fullback intervened, and again got away with it. Had the subsequent Heerenveen move led to a goal, as nearly happened, the reaction from the Heracles camp would have been interesting. Substitute Ion Niculescu was the one latching on here, and bringing a fine fingertip stop from Fabian de Keyser. But it was a familiar feeling for the Heracles coach. Niculescu, the Moldovan international, went close one more time before the end, but his last 2 goals have come in the cup. The last Eredivisie strike being the one that downed PSV here in December, sparking the start of the champions' previous slump. With games coming up against Willem II and Sparta, they can do Heracles a favour. The visitors have a derby with FC Twente to come next, and tricky matches with AZ, Feyenoord and PSV to negotiate before the end of the season. Sunday began in Deventer, with high-flying go-ahead Eagles looking to hit the top six. They faced a Willem II side battling the drop, who had the ball in the net early through Sandra's header, a goal which was quickly disallowed for offside. Something that became a recurring theme during the game. The visitors came into this third bottom and without a win so far this year. They'd lost 6 of their 8 games, but picked up points in the 2 hardest ones on paper against PSV and Feyenoord. In contrast, the Eagles had won 11 and lost just 2 of their last 15 in all competitions. And in Oliver Antman, they had the Eredivisie's leading assist maker. The Finland international was quickly into his stride, but marshalled well by Tommy Santiago here. They nearly took the lead from the resulting corner, though. A well-worked one, with Joris Kramer's late run seeing him go close. The header cleared off the line by Rafael Bahune. The visiting response was spearheaded by veteran striker Jeremy Bokila. The 36-year-old's yet to score this year, but came close with a shot that had goalkeeper Jari de Bussa beaten, but then hit the post. While his effort seemed to tax his leg, the home side's number 1 appeared to have landed awkwardly too and needed treatment on his left hand. The chances continued at both ends, with the Eagles using their set piece as well. Milan Smid, the next to go close with another far post header. Beaten away by Thomas Didion Erdl. The young striker was looking to score in back-to-back games after contributing to last week's win over NAC. That had been a game dominated by Antman, who'd set him up as well as scoring twice himself. And he remained the chief outlet for them here in an even first half. Willem II gave as good as they got, and their performance in last week's narrow loss to Utrecht shows they do have plenty of belief and confidence left. Still, they got to the break level when Smith couldn't quite get to Antman's cross. Plenty for both coaches to digest over half-time. It seemed Willem II had done enough to take the lead early in the second half. After Mikael Turpan's free kick, midfielder Boris Lambert prodded the ball in. The same pairing that had combined for their opening goal last time out. But the Belgians' joy was short-lived as the VAR checked for offside. The ball had been knocked down to him, and it seemed he was beyond the last defender. Replays then showed that to be the case, so for the second time, they missed out on a goal. The luck wasn't on Peter Maas's side. But moments later, the host could say the same, as they saw one ruled out for offside. This time it happened in the build-up. Victor Edvardsen just making his run too quickly down the right. Mathis Soré put the ball away after it came back to him off the post, but the flag was already up. His first home goal for the club swiftly taken away, the third to be chalked off so far. Although the visitors did make life difficult, go-ahead Eagles earned themselves chances on the break by being as direct as possible. Soré, the provider of their next 2 opportunities, this ending with both Smith and Dean James just not quite close enough to convert. And midway through the half, Soré picked out Smith again, who was making his 3rd consecutive start. He's had to wait a while for the opening, having joined from Cambuur in the summer and been only a sub in the first half of the season. But things weren't quite working out for him here. Then, just inside the final 15 minutes, Willem II should have made them pay with a quick break. After a good advantage from referee Robin Henskens, who was on the verge of blowing for a foul but realised the Tilburgers were better off carrying on. Jesse Bosch, who took it on, couldn't finish it off. Their best chance of the game, barring the 2 disallowed goals. So many options for him to take here, a disappointing way for the midfielder to conclude the move. With Bokila up front, they could also mix up the approach, and they probably could have tried this one a bit more. The ball held up, creating one half chance, which then led to another shooting position for Sandra. But eventually one of the Eagles' breaks down the right paid off. Antman grabbed himself another assist. Smith getting the finish right for a third goal of the season. And increasingly, it was looking like one goal would be enough. The 12th assist of a brilliant campaign for Ant-Man will be hard to keep a hold of in the summer. There was still work to do to secure their fourth straight win, but they nearly got it in the closing stages when sub Oscar Peterson got away. Lambert getting back to prevent a certain goal, with two home players waiting for a tap-in. Willem II continued to curse their luck and also weren't happy with the performance of the referee. A few of their players felt he penalised them too harshly and whistled too frequently against Bokile in particular. They picked up a yellow in stoppage time for that foul on Calvin Twist, one which he followed up with a card for Mas, who spoke his mind too forcefully. A 13th victory of the season for Paul Simonis, the most in one campaign since 1986. It lifted them temporarily to 6th, above RZ, who were playing Ajax later. Groningen were in a similar position to Willem II not long ago, but after a run of one defeat in 6, including wins over the Tilburgers, NSA and Heerenveen, they were now looking up. They began this 4 points behind their opponents with the chance to move into the top half with victory. Fortuna were first to threaten though. Alessio de Cruz felt he deserved a penalty for the challenge by Tijmen Blokzijl. Unfortunately for him, the referee Allard Lindhout didn't agree. The visitors were 3 points away from securing their top flight status, the first objective for coach Danny Baas, although in reality they've never looked in danger and are knocking on the door of the European playoffs. They were knocking on Groningen's door with Ezekiel Boulada, Bojan Radulovic and Edouard Michou all getting potential opportunities to shoot, which Michou eventually did. They'd won their last 2 against Heracles and RKC, and also won October's first meeting by a 0-0, but only in the 86th minute. They had won the last 4 league meetings too, with Groningen's most recent success coming in November of 2021. And the Northerners had to wait over half an hour for their first sniff of a chance. A long ball finding Dave Kwarkman, but this was comfortable for Matthijs Brandenhorst. Groningen were the second lowest scorers in the Eredivisie, with 23 goals at this point, but they'd also conceded fewer than anyone outside the top 6. So a tight game was to be expected, and so it proved. The home side patient with their build-up, as Fortuna made life difficult. The eventual shot came from Luciano Valente, their Italian playmaker. Already a popular figure, having come through the youth ranks. And for his first Eredivisie goal, having been the winner in the Derby of the North against Heerenveen. But his wasn't the best chance of the half. That one fell to another 21-year-old Tom van Bergen. He had scored in 2 of his last 3 matches, both of them here at home, and he looked set to give them the lead after juggling the ball past Rodrigo Huth, only to fluff his shot. A let-off for Brandenhorst after his poorly directed free kick. And in the context of the game, a big miss. Because the second half didn't yield many chances either, with set pieces becoming more important. Groningen earned one from this run by Marco Rente, who got away from Jasper Dalhaus. He, in turn, earned a yellow card for his actions. And from a great delivery, it was a Fortuna head that got there first. A header from Bergen, so the danger was averted. And just shy of the hour, Baus elected to change things to try get one over on his old club. Winger Christopher Pedersen and striker Kai Zeerhuis were his subs, De Cruz and Radulovic making way. Zeerhuis played here for a year on loan from Ajax before leaving for French side Reims, and is still fondly remembered. Groningen continued to look the more likely to score though, with defender Hjalmar Ekdal coming close to a first goal since January's loan move from Burnley. A fine stop from Brandenhorst to deny the Swedish centre-half. But the longer the match wore on, the more it seemed a goalless draw was the likely outcome. Both of Steyr Racing's goals this season have come against Willem II, and he should have done better when the ball fell for him on the edge of the box. Groningen's January recruitment has been one factor in their improvement, and Kwakman's loan from RZ is looking like an important piece of business. Their primary objective is also to stay up, and the 20-year-old is helping in that, almost setting up Van Bergen again, who had a frustrating afternoon. After injury last week, Alen Halilovic had been kept on the bench for much of this game, but he joined the action ahead of the final 5 minutes, replacing Poulouda. However, just 2.5 minutes later, it was the home side that won it through one of their subs, Brynjolfur Willemsen, who struck at almost exactly the same time as Fortuna scored to win the first meeting. The fourth goal of his first season in Dutch football, 3 of them have come as a sub. Kwakman played his part too, either missing his kick or deliberately dummying this one. Either way, it allowed the ball to run on to the Icelander. The final minute of normal time brought with it a big decision for the referee as Fortuna striker Makanaiko went in for the ball at the same time as Groningen keeper Etienne Vassen. The visitors, understandably, wanted a penalty. But he seemed to have just headed it away from the keeper's grasp as he came out to try and claim it. Nothing doing from the officials, and Fortuna lost for the 6th time this year. But they remained in 8th, although Groningen and Heerenveen are now just a point behind. Safety does seem assured for both, given the struggles going on below them. And with either AZ or go-ahead Eagles above them set to win the cup, the playoffs will extend to 9th, so both could yet qualify. And both will play sides below them next. Sparta host Fortuna, Groningen travel south to NAC Breda. The highest scoring game of the weekend took place in Enschede, where FC Twente and Feyenoord led the battle for 3rd behind the current incumbents Utrecht. It was a memorable match for many reasons and for many players. Ayase Ueda among them, who opened the scoring inside 10 minutes. Thanks to the first, the hat-trick of assists from Hivera Reid. Twente's defenders completely lost the striker, allowing him a first league goal since mid-October. This was just the second Eredivisie game in charge for Robin van Persie, so that was also just their second goal under him after one against Inter Milan. The third arrived in style. Igor Paschal intercepting Matthias Kjola's pass and lashing one into the top corner. No chance for keeper Lars Unnestål, who probably only heard it was past him, it was so quick. And from that point on, the Brazilian winger took over. He was involved in all of their subsequent goals and dominated the game, which he called his best for the club. The home side were missing striker Ricky van Wolfswinkel due to injury, as well as another forward Sam Lammers and midfielder Michal Sadilek, but it was at the back where they really struggled. Mistake followed mistake as they were pulled out of position and looked uncertain. Paschal was actually well contained here, seemingly by Gustav Lagerbielke, but his clearance could have been better. And then he went to lash the ball into the face of his teammate Gijs Besseling, allowing Paschal to set up Ueda for his second. A commanding lead already, in one of their most one-sided games this season. As for Unnestål, he couldn't fathom what was going on in front of him and why he was getting so little protection from his defenders. The home side did briefly regain some composure and pulled a goal back late in the half after an unnecessary foul from Hugo Bueno. His contact on Taylor Booth was minimal to say the least, but the US winger both anticipated and made the most of it. Referee Serdar Huzebek wasn't asked to look at it again. So, the Eredivisie's leading scorer, Sem Stein, got the chance to extend his advantage at the top, slamming in a 21st goal in 26 games. Hope at last for FC Twente, who'd been unbeaten here against Feyenoord since April 2018. They'd also won 9 of their previous 10 games here, keeping clean sheets in 7, and if they scored the next goal, then who knows? But instead, it was Paschal from another assist by Reed. Feyenoord's break saw them expose Twente's back line. Again, the winger unmarked as he slammed into the corner, and after 4 away games without a win, they were cruising towards this one. And less than 10 minutes later, they had 5, with Paschal completing his hat-trick, and Reed his hat-trick of assists. Again, the Brazilian caught out the home defence, sprinting ahead of Bart van Rooij to get to the ball first. He got the match ball. Reed said he'd try grab one too after becoming the youngest player this century to provide 3 assists in one Eredivisie match. That beat the previous record held by Wesley Sneijder. And from now on, it was damage limitation for Twente. They did pull another one back to make the scoreline slightly more respectable. Stein, inevitably the man. His 22nd, putting him 10 ahead of Luc de Jong and AZ's Troy Parrott. Michel Flapp providing the assist, but it was scant consolation. And the goalscorer himself said they'd had no chance playing like this. Feyenoord moved a point ahead of them with the win, but they ended the weekend still just 3 points behind third place, so Twente have much still to play for. Unfortunately, they also still had 20 minutes of this game to play without conceding again. The way Feyenoord cut through them, seemingly at will, that looked unlikely. Paschal could have had a 4th from this move, but Unnestål, for once, came out on top with a decent save. Former Twente left-back Huismael was enjoying himself in Feyenoord's midfield, where he's played for the last few games, although he said he also found it a little painful seeing his old side suffer. He set up Paschal again with a neat ball through the legs of Arne Verschuren, but once again, the host goalkeeper kept the score down. The final word went to another former Twente player, 18-year-old Aymen Sliti, who spent 6 years in their academy before moving to Feyenoord, where he was coached in their youth ranks by Van Persie, who handed him an Eredivisie debut in the closing stages, having made his senior debut starting against Inter Milan 5 days before. Paschal getting the assist, his 2nd to go with his hat-trick. A cool finish. His manager looked particularly proud. His side got the final word. Van Persie said that this now had to be the benchmark for the rest of the season, as they chased down third place and the Champions League spot that goes with it. Informed go-ahead Eagles provide the next challenge. Twente have a local derby with Heracles to look forward to after the break. With Ajax's 125th anniversary falling on the 18th of March, they wore a special kit for this crucial match with AZ, a side they'd failed to beat in the last 7 outings. There was much at stake, which perhaps explained the fractured and intense nature of the first half. Ajax and their coaching staff had become frustrated with the approach of some AZ players like Per Koopmeiners. Francesco Farioli's assistant, Felipe Sanchez, picked up 2 yellow cards in quick succession for his remonstrations. Sent off by referee Dennis Higler, himself a focus of plenty of attention later in the game. Having rotated heavily for the Europa League defeat to Frankfurt, Farioli made 10 more changes for this. AZ also exited Europe on Thursday after defeat by Spurs. Sanchez took a little while to calm down. Most of the action came after the break, kicked off by Kenneth Taylor's shot, which struck the upright 6 minutes in. He'd scored 3 of their last 4 goals, but was a fraction away from another. AZ were the last team to beat Ajax in the Eredivisie back in early December, and less than a minute later they were the ones that struck first after a good combination on the edge of the box. Zico Burmeister, Christian Belic and Troy Parrott all involved. Burmeister slotting it home. The first time that the hosts had fallen behind in their last 10 Eredivisie matches, having won all 10. A frustrating minute of football for Taylor in particular. However, he very nearly made amends with a barnstorming run down the left-hand side to set up their best chance so far. One which Bertrand Traoré would have put away 9 times out of 10. Unfortunately, this time was the one where he contrived to miss the target. He didn't let this affect him though, and 2 minutes later he was integral to the equaliser. Linking up well with Anton Gay. A back heel playing the right back in, and it was an afternoon of mixed emotions for him. At this point though, he was on a real high, arrowing in a second of the season and just his 3rd for the club. A standout moment which gave them the lift that they were looking for, as they looked to re-establish their 8-point advantage over PSV. However, Gay's game flipped the other way when he caught Burmeister high on the shin and over the top of the ball, while stretching to try and keep possession. The referee was a good distance away and only saw it from behind initially, so his reaction was a yellow card. But he was soon being asked by the video assistant referee to have a look again, and it was no surprise, looking at these pictures, that he changed his mind. And Ajax were soon having to play the closing stages with 10 men. The defender went on to kick up a fuss, but there was little for him to argue with. In the end, though, they were a man down for less than a minute, because an RZ defender was soon joining Gay in leaving early. Alexander Penetre picking up his 2nd yellow card for this challenge on Brian Brobby, which looked clean enough on first viewing, hence the reaction from the Portuguese centre-back. And then the reaction from his coaching team too. This was the decision Higler received the most criticism for. RZ's captain Jordi Klaasie called it unbelievable and bizarre. They also said the referee apologised to them afterwards, but because it was a yellow card, it couldn't be checked by the VAR. With the bench up in arms, it seemed Walter Roos was beckoning his teammates to leave the field in protest, although he said it was more about getting them together to plan for the final 15 minutes. The situation went on for a while, seemingly calming down at one point and then sparking again, as experienced heads looked to pour water on the flames. The bad feeling simmered on for the rest of the game, which looked to have been won by RZ when substitute Ibrahim Sadiq headed in Court Miner's corner at the far post. The ball had just cleared the head of Jordan Henderson and caught goalkeeper Mateos out of position. The first since mid-September in what's been an injury-hit season for the winger. This only his 3rd league outing of the year. A goal cheered loudly in Eindhoven too. However, once again Ajax responded quickly, and another ball arrowed in by Taylor from the left was snapped up by Oliver Edvardsen for his 3rd goal since joining in January. All of them have come here. Rome Jadon Owusu-Adore with the costly mistake, and it was all square again. Taylor may not have scored this time, but he did play a big part in the result. And based on the second half, a draw seemed just about fair, with Ajax failing to take the fleeting moments they created before the break. Their lead as a result was reduced to 6 points, and PSV are their next opponents after the international break. And they also still have to go to Utrecht. RZ travel to NAC, having missed the chance to move into 5th place, above Twente. Of the 24 goals this weekend, a 3rd of them came in one match, as Feyenoord showed how clinical they can be under Robin van Persie. PSV will hope their return to form over the last week hasn't come too late. Defeats for the bottom 3 mean a missed opportunity for each to gain ground, as the 2 sides above the drop zone, Sparta and PEC Zwolle, drew. It remains Ajax's title to lose, with the battle for 3rd tightening up. The bottom 2 have to start winning, and quickly. That's all for now. We're back after the international break. Until then, from me, Jonathan Beck, it's goodbye.